Rory Sullivan here. This is a case of a preloaded tissue used for a DMEK. This patient's vision was 6 on 15, mainly from the confluent gutty that he had in that eye. He had a mild cataract as well. The other eye was 6 on 12 with a worse cataract but less confluent gutty. So the cataract surgery is fairly routine. You can see the patient's eye movements with his respiration here, and that persisted throughout the case. Visualisation for the cataract surgery wasn't great, so once again it was confirming that the cornea was the main issue with his vision. I didn't want to have to go back and do a cataract again after his DMEK though in this case. That's a Hoya XY1 lens going in, aiming about -1. So I'm just using the caliper here to set up my marking for the donor tissue and for the stripping. The donor was an 8mm pre-prepared, pre-stripped, stamped and stained, and I'm marking about 7.5mm on the cornea. The viscoelastic is still filling the anterior chamber, and I'll strip the Descemet's membrane with the Provisc still in place. Just using a reverse Sinski hook to start the scoring. And completing it from the other paracentesis. And the Descemet's membrane strips fairly easily. Just using some end gripping retinal forceps 25 gauge to remove the Descemet's membrane. Just finally going back to get that last little tag that you can see there, and just tearing that around tangentially to get a nice edge. And doing irrigation aspiration and aspirating behind the IOL to remove any last remnants of the Provisc viscoelastic. Polishing the posterior capsule a little there. The vision blue goes in, and then it's time to look at the donor. You can see the donor tissue with a clear S stamp on the stromal side, and the caps at the anterior and posterior extent of the injector. If you take the cap off, the fluid leaks out the other end. So if you don't want that to happen, don't take that cap off, but submerge the entire injector in BSS before you try to do that. In this case, I do need to restain the graft, and I think that's a common occurrence. So I'll just put a bit of fluid in the front end of the injector, and then irrigate through the back end cap to wash the graft down. Now, just removing that cap at the back end, making sure the graft is at the front end there, and then the Vision Blue just going in to restain the graft. So if you're trying to connect your BSS syringe in air, you will still have that air bubble to deal with. So what I do here is inject some BSS in there with a cannula so that fills the injector, and then I refill the glass bowl with more BSS so that I can do the connection under fluid. And there I've got good connection with no air bubbles. There's the graft, nicely stained. As I gradually inject the fluid and try to slowly advance the graft, you'll see that the surrounding fluid becomes less blue and the graft stands out more clearly. As I'm getting it towards the narrowing in the injector, I'm starting to look at the conformation and also the positioning, hoping to be able to inject it with the stromal side up and the endothelium down, even when it's scrolled. Just getting rid of that little air bubble in the tip of the injector before going into the AC. And I'm just rotating the injector the right way up now. You can see it's very depressurized AC. And I'm very conscious of not wanting to inject that graft behind the iris. So I'm angling it up towards the cornea. Slowly, slowly, withdraw a bit and then inject a bit. And it's sitting nicely in front there. Very gradually withdraw the injector, tap the graft around so it's not adjacent to the main wound, and suture the main wound. I usually suture from outside to in, as we tend to disturb the AC much less. I'll leave that knot exposed for now, as there's no pressure that will allow me to bury it. I'm just tapping and looking at the conformation of the graft here. It looks like a taco fold at the moment. Just letting just a squirt of BSS there, and it's scrolling up again now because the AC is deeper. Just letting some fluid out of the AC. Gently tapping to see what the graft does. Letting fluid out. The graft, I think, here is the right way up, and I just need to unfold it and position it. I can see the S stamp even though it's not well seen in the video. You can see the pupil is smaller now, and I have used Mycol earlier on. So just tapping the graft across and periodically shallowing the AC, which encourages the graft to unfold on top of the iris. Letting fluid out again. Now the graft's in good position, so I'm just going in under it with an air cannula here and just putting a small gentle air bubble in just to confirm that the graft's in the appropriate position and I can see the S stamp in the correct conformation, and then going back in with some SF6 with a full air fill. And then burying that knot. This is day one. You can see the S stamp. It's quite paracentral, and sometimes you get some corneal edema surrounding that stamp. So I'd prefer to have that a bit more peripheral, but the graft appears to be in good position at this stage. Thanks for watching.